Hi, my name is Nancy Wang. I'm the founder and CEO of a 501c3 global nonprofit that's called Advancing Women in Product, or AWIP for short. Our mission is to advance women and minorities into tech leadership roles, folks who have a technical background, and we focus on folks who are in their mid careers. So between 10 to 15 years of experience is our sweet spot. So between those two, I'm really passionate about leveraging content, and which I'm going to be talking with you today, Karen, about our Future of Women study, in which we had over 1,000 unique respondents, primarily women who were in their mid-careers, from topics of promotion or mentorship or feeling heard in the room. And this is especially pertinent right now because we've now been in COVID for almost a year, right? Having started in Q1, and it's had a lot of long-lasting impacts on women's career mobility.
And talk about that, Nancy. That we're seeing, and it's hard to believe that we're almost a year into this.
Yeah.
And as we get another year down the road, we're going to look back at at this time and say, wow, this is what came out of it, and this is, and some silver lining, hopefully too. But what we're seeing is some negative, consequences too from this pandemic as far as for work is concerned. Talk a little bit about the study in terms of some of the highlights, some of the things that really stood out to you, and then we'll talk about how we can change those things if they need to be
Yeah,
changed.
absolutely. So I would say, three major findings came out from this report. Again, that Advancing Women in Product, as well as a coaching company that's called Bravely, conducted this year. And so the first finding that we had was that, gender diversity really impacts the perception of career mobility. So, for example, in organizations where it was more male dominated, women felt like they had a lack of confidence in their promotion. And this was measured in a sliding scale. So clearly, the more diverse your organization is, the more diverse leadership and representation you are going to have, which then instills more confidence in women and other minorities in your workplace that, yes, they have that advancement path or path upwards. Two, our second finding was that product will benefit from broader ethnic diversity. So for example, of the over 1,000 respondents that we had, for example, it's important for folks to have other colleagues that they can associate with, their in groups. So when it comes to leadership positions, especially seeing someone who you identify with from an ethnic background or from a gender background, can help you really see yourself in that leadership position. And that's why folks who are drawn and provided some, for example, anecdotes to our study. One of our respondents, who was a 15-year plus veteran in the tech workforce, was already a people manager, still said, if you don't see someone like you in your workplace and in the role that you aspire to be, it can be very lonely, right? And some of that loneliness or feeling like you don't belong can certainly impact someone's upward mobility. And then, of course, lastly, which is super important, is that topic of mentorship and having internal sponsorship. So for our respondents who, for example, we split them up into two groups, one group who did not have a mentor and one group who self-responded that they did have a mentor. Overwhelmingly, those who had a mentor said that they felt like their career paths were great and decent. And of course, those who did not have a mentor stated that they were either struggling or feeling terrible within their organizations. So that's super important. In fact, one of our, actually two of our very stellar executive advisors and sponsors of the nonprofit, one of whom, Sandy Carter, who's the vice president of enterprise workloads at Amazon Web Services, she says that sponsorship is one of the most important elements for success of all aspiring leaders. And then one of our other executive advisors, Tatiana Sana Mahmood, who's the chief product officer at a company that I believe has really taken off with COVID, Nextdoor, says that there's still uncertainty about how to navigate a career with family for women, and mentorship is an important part of that equation. So all of that, kind of comes together to say during times of COVID, which is actually right around the time that we started this study, um, that really magnifies the level of feeling lonely or the level of disconnect, right? And so given that we're now all remote and working from our individual houses, right, a lot of questions that come up is how do I stay connected, or how can I find a mentor during this situation, right? Previously, you run into someone in a hallway and you go, hey, I really enjoyed that talk or that presentation you did. Let's go grab some coffee, right? Now it's, even for our conversation, right? Hey, Karen, are you free during this times? Or you would ask me, hey, Nancy, are you free during this times, right? It's a couple back and forth, then we find a time to meet. It no longer has that organic feel, right? And that's what a lot of these mentorship relationships come down to. And so again, for women who are interested in continuing to advance their careers during this very strange time for all of us, right? It's important to continue reaching out and to seek people who can be your mentors and sponsors in a way where it may not feel natural to you, but it's important to push through and keep on going.
Yeah, and it's hard, I think, Nancy, for a lot of women with, with families, kids at home, and they're doing their, virtual learning. That all of a sudden the dining room table has become a classroom and your workspace, I've unfortunately talked to many women who've said, I feel so pulled in so many directions trying to take care of my job, but my other job as a mom and having them there and in our space and trying to help them navigate their classroom work, it's really, really hard to do that. And it'd be one thing if it was just for a month, but it's been going on and on for, in some states, kids haven't gone back to school at all.
Absolutely. And in fact, that's actually why a lot of the conversation now, even among senior women leadership. So, for example, yesterday I was a part of the Andreessen Horowitz getting women and more minorities board ready conversation. And naturally, during the breakout groups, our conversation turned into, well, family obligations are real, right? You want your children to continue succeeding in their educational career, just like you want to succeed in your work career. And that takes time. Right. At the end of the day, it's really about where are you investing, your precious time and precious hours. And traditionally, that has been a role that women have played in society. And of course, as women have advanced to senior executive roles, right, there's more help or more resources that can help alleviate some of that burden. But of course, with COVID and some of those healthcare maybe challenges, right, that you and I and our friends have all experienced, that means that women are no longer getting the support that they have in the past, right? And so there's a couple of strategies, that I've heard work for example, my organization or other leaders that I work with at, Amazon and other companies, is really coming down to a common understanding with your partner, right? Whoever it might be, of sharing those responsibilities. And from a managerial perspective or corporate dynamic perspective, understanding, hey, just because you're a female employee or male employee for that matter, right? Because we have a lot of great dads out there, are gone from the hours of maybe 2 to 5 p.m. in the afternoon, but they come online later at night after the kids have gone to bed. That does not mean that they are any less of a productive employee, provided the output is the same. So understanding those paradigms and becoming more comfortable with flexible work schedules is an important step, and one that I try to espouse for my team.
All right, Nancy. So, a lot of information to unpack here, so many things for us to look to and things to keep in mind. If you could say to those in leadership positions, in tech especially, what do they need to do? If you could kind of boil it down to a couple really important things to keep in mind to help keep women, involved and happy in their roles as they're trying to work through this difficult time, how would you kind of boil that down to a couple main points?
Absolutely, right? So again, going back to outcomes or learnings that we had from our study, the Future Women Study, which I'd be happy to share with you. And for folks tuning in, please definitely take a look, because I'm sure reading through as a woman in tech or a male ally of women in tech, you might identify or recognize a lot of the same concerns or feedback that you might have yourself or from your female colleagues. So a couple of things definitely, stand out, and a few I've put in practice, even here at Amazon, which is helping women establish affinity groups, which are so important during the times of COVID, right? Of creating a safe space where they can meet virtually at a time that's convenient to them, especially those who have children and other family care duties. Of affinity groups where they can share certain topics. Again, from a more systematic perspective, number two is actually building some of that flexibility into your promotion schedule or into the way that you assess talent, right? Because that's so key. You can't just focus on hiring new people. You have to make sure that you retain your top performers. And some of those top performers are going to be women in your workforce who need more of a flexible schedule. So making sure that despite the fact that they may not be, at their desk, right, all 12 hours or 8 hours of a day because they have other obligations, making sure that at the end of the day, what they get assessed on is their output and not their ability to have a flexible schedule. And I think lastly is making sure, right, that women, I feel like, and especially in the workforce, have a lot of challenges to overcome, such as making their voices heard, finding sponsors. And so tied to number one, which is making sure that they have affinity groups, making sure that they also have a path or the ability to connect with senior leaders, right? And so senior leaders also need to make it a priority in their lives. So, for example, my leadership currently hold a diversity town hall or diversity fireside chats, right? So, making sure that it's not just lip service, but also, hey, this is really important to us. We'll take time out of our, vice president schedules or C-level schedules to make sure that we talk about these topics, right? And we put programming in place so that women can have peer mentoring groups or have access to leadership sponsorship. So, all of those together from a I think visibility perspective to a pure, safe space perspective to actually baking it into how you think about retaining or promoting your talent. I think all of that is really the trifecta and what you need to not just talk, but also to walk the walk during this very challenging time.
Yep, challenging indeed, and that's I like that. Not just don't talk about it, but you got to do it and put these things in place to help. We'll get through it, but it's not going to be easy, and it hasn't been an easy time. Let's be honest, it's very difficult, and seems especially for women. So, really an interesting study, Nancy, and the timing of it, of course, was makes it even more interesting. And we're going to put a link to that study and your findings there, of course, with this interview, so folks can check it out. But I really appreciate you being here with me today. I think the work you guys are doing, and on behalf of women and minorities, it's really important work.
Well, thank you so much. And in fact, one other thing I'd love to share with you, Karen, when it's out is COVID has actually changed the way that we deliver content to our members. And so, where we had physical workshops previously, we've now doubled down on our partnership with Coursera and with AWS to create some of that career training programs and put it fully online. So, the one that we launched in September around the fundamentals and real world product management has now had over 4,000 learners and enrollments since we launched in September, which is a huge, I would say, response. And we're already underway in terms of our second specialization that's focused on how to get women and minorities in particular cloud ready, because the number of cloud jobs that have just that have exploded, right? And so being competitive in this new tech world almost requires that you be savvy around cloud principles. So more to come on that, and love to update you.
Excellent. Yes, most definitely. All right, Nancy. Well, thank you again for being with us. And as I mentioned, that study online here at Tech Republic will have for you. We hope you all check it out, and we appreciate you watching here today.